How do you get the eyes on your
How are you
product?
going to get people to see, you know?
I have one question before you get to the marketing, and that is, how do you protect the rights? You file for a copyright yourself, and then they insert a disclaimer page from the Library of Congress, or within ISBN, or how do you do that?
That's right.
There's a giant war going on the internet right now between IP, intellectual property, and open source. As a person who's lived a lot of his life trying to get paid from the things he writes with copyright, let me tell you, don't worry about it. First of all, common law copyright has turned out to be about as good as anything. When somebody pirates you in another country, and I've had this happen to me, there's nothing you can do about it. But within, I mean, you can make noise and maybe collect a few, rubles or something, a shekel, whatever. But the thing about it is, generally speaking, common law copyright tends to be good enough. It's amazing how rarely a person really has his or her work actually stolen. It doesn't happen very often. The problem is copyright in perpetuity, like the Disney Corporation wants or the Scientologists want for L. Ron Hubbard, versus copyright that eventually runs out, becomes public domain, and then people get to discover you after you're dead, because if copyright lasts forever, your chance of being famous goes down. Tolstoy tried to give all of his copyrights away at the end. Edgar Allan Poe, his agent hated him and threw his stuff away to France. It got translated to French, got rediscovered, came back to America, and was a success. H.P. Lovecraft didn't even worry about copyright, threw a lot of things away in fanzines. Some things got copyrighted later by Arkham House, and then later by mainstream publishers trying to copyright stuff that Lovecraft had already thrown away for free.
Well, all the Lovecraft stuff is public domain. I've been reading a lot of stuff.
But really doesn't matter. Every year you're in a TARDIS, you're in a time machine. This year, this is the Lovecraft copyright situation. This year, this is the situation. The fact is, Lovecraft's insanely famous partly because there weren't a lot of copyrights protecting him ultimately. J.R.R. Tolkien had an edition of Lord of the Rings put out by Ace, I think it was. Ace, violating his copyrights. Everybody got all excited. So then when the real copyright version came out, then everybody bought that because he got all this free advertising. What was the free advertising? The pirated edition. The edition that wasn't proper with copyright built up Tolkien's name. If he had not had that rip-off edition, there would not have been such a huge audience for the later copyrighted edition, so there wouldn't have been the Ralph Bakshi film, so he wouldn't end up with the Peter Jackson film, so a fantasy movie wouldn't win 11 Oscars. I'm telling you, we are overly concerned with this copyright bullshit. My position is be a moderate, unparanoid copyright person. Don't go all the way to open source anarchy, but don't worry about copyright. No one wants to steal your stuff, is what it comes down to. Hardly ever.
I don't think that was my concern as much as so many, and I could be wrong because, and I admit that going into it, because I work in the book publishing industry, and I know we do worry a lot about copyright because of being sued and things like that. But the other thing, the ISBN is very important to us and to our authors.
Even on this thing we had.
Do you even need, I don't think you need one for Kindle.
I don't know.
Sorry,
Kindle,
some readers you do.
For Kindle, Amazon, and Amazon gives you like the equivalent of an ISBN. It's technically not called ISBN, it's for ebooks. For Smashwords, if you go through them, they'll give you one for free, and that takes care of it.
$10.
It was free last time.
Yeah, it's free.
Is it?
Yeah.
But it's going to become a controversy. It's not going to go away. This IP versus open source thing is going to be a battle for the rest of our lifetimes, because the internet has changed everything, and the copyright wars are going to continue for the rest of our lives. And I'm recommending writers be less paranoid now, because writers have always been too paranoid anyway. How about people who do a little fancy and they send the thing off to the Library of Congress to get a copyright? This is ridiculous. Or you get a typical magazine. They buy first North American serial rights in this country. So you pick up a magazine, and then you'll see that one writer who's more paranoid. So if it's Harlan, it's the extra copyright. Kilimanjaro Corporation, but everybody else is in the magazine without a special copyright, because I think the first North American serial rights is sufficient. Well, I've been in publications, semi-pro things. One case, they forgot to put any copyright on it. They didn't even do the North American serial rights. There was nothing. Nothing was ever stolen, and I never ran into any problem people trying to rip off something that have no copyright acknowledgement at all, because common law copyright, that's how I discovered it. There is such a thing as common law
Yeah,
copyright.
as soon as you write something, it's copyright.
Yeah, what he says.
As soon as you write it, it's copyright. I don't even know if you have to put the little C.
So
Yeah, right, what he says.
So I put the little thing in my ebooks, the little
Yeah.
volume,
Yeah, but
but
if you-
I don't file paperwork with
I don't either. I've done it once and then I'm like, I'm spending $20. Why am I doing this?
No,
Amen,
it's
brother.
more. And here's three
Well, I used
pieces.
to-
Here's three
that's how
pieces
long
of-
ago I did it.
Here's three pieces of information that I found out this past year. Currently, copyright through the copywriting offices in Washington, it's now $65. And it can take you up to 6 or 8 months to get the paperwork back. The second thing is, those of you who've done print books, you know ISBNs are like $125 or $100 from Bowker. Well, you cannot use the same ISBN on your print book as you can on the exact same ebook.
Right.
It has to be different. I ran into that.
Yeah, that's something else that's posted on Smashwords.
And I'm not against the ISBN. I have an ad in your program book, your Spooky Empire program book. I have an ad for Mondo Cult magazine. In case you saw, it's a half-page ad. I'm the publisher. And we pay to get the ISBN. So I'm not being a fanatic about this. I'm not an open source guy. But I have learned from the open source internet anarchists to be a lot more reasonable as a copyright guy, if that makes sense.
Brad, just as a clarification, you consider Doctor O.
Corey, does everybody know who Cory Doctorow is? Show of hands. Right, he's a fascinating character. He's the only writer I know who discovered that he could give away everything for free, then turn around and sell it. So all this stuff you give away for free, and then suddenly here's Tor books. Let me see. I mean, here's an example of how weird the world is. It took me 2 years working with another editor to put together Free Space, a libertarian science fiction anthology from Tor. It was hardback and trade paper. And it was copyright worries and copyright obsessions, and this is supposed to be all originals. And there's like a couple of pages in here were basically reprints, largely original. So it's 90% original, I guess maybe 10% reprint. And the whole issue was the copyright issues. And then I find out years later that Cory Doctorow is giving away stuff, like he's H.P. Lovecraft or something. Then Tor puts this stuff out and people buy what is already available for free. So why did I sweat blood for 2 years worrying about all these stupid copyrights?
Well, Brad, I can answer that question. I mean, the thing is, I think people, I mean, I'm not against the ebooks, but I think a lot of people, there is a significant market that still wants a solid book, and there's I think a definite market that can keep people in business, and the ebook might be so you can find a quote easy for them.
Yeah.
You tell that to the Books A Million that just went out of business in my neighborhood, and the Borders store that just bankrupted.
In
Tell it to
my-
them,
yeah.
'cause it ain't gonna happen, man. You like those books there? The minute the person next to you buys that ebook, they're not gonna buy that book anymore.
But I think it's gonna be, I think hard copy books are gonna be a specialty market, and they're gonna be a niche market, and if anything, book collectors, all of their, there was a joke at Worldcon that if ebooks get any bigger, I mean, the good thing is now your print books are more rare and their value will go up, your collections will be more valuable.
And of course, when we get to a point where we need to burn those books to keep warm and to cook food, then they'll really be worth money. People will really be looking for them.
I do think that over time, the paper and ink book is going to go away, except as like a collectible or specialty item. I mean, it may not be, it may not be, in 10 years, it may not be 20 years, but I think we are headed that way.
All you have to do is look at it from a business standpoint. If you're a bookstore, you've got employees, you got people who bring the books in, you got the baristas working there, you got all these folks that you're paying. You got this building to pay for, you got these books you gotta pay for when they come in. And then if you're Barnes & Noble, you got the Nook that's selling the same books electronically. So every time they sell a book electronically, they are not going to sell that book physically. So when the electronic books reach a certain point, the physical books will not be able to support the bookstore's structure, and it's going to collapse.
Yep.
And that's what's going to happen.
I have Barnes and Noble now.
You already see it. You've already seen it with Borders. You're seeing it with Books. I saw it with Books.
Yeah, but Borders also made some bad business decisions that I don't think had anything to do with ebooks.
A lot of people think Barnes and Noble is on its.
There's only one chain bookstore left that's a true, because Books A Million is borderline. It's only Barnes and Noble now. Last man. outstanding.
Yeah, but I read the top, of course, the internet had a top 10 reasons why borders failed, but some of them were just economic decisions, which I don't think had anything to do with the ebook industry.
What about Tower? Everybody went down. Tower Record went down.
You look at
Version went down. Everybody went down.
I was shocked.
Yeah.
You can't sustain a model where if I'm gonna buy a book, and it's $25 or $29, and over here it's $7, why am I gonna pay, and I got a reader, I'm not gonna pay $29 for it.
Well,
And as
yeah,
an
but
author, if I'm selling my book for $2.99, I know the price of this because that's what I'm selling for. For $2.99, I'm selling about $2.99. I get $2 on an ebook. Now, if I sell a paperback for $2.99, I get 15 cents maybe, or 10 cents, depending on your deal.
How many cents did you get off that book when the New York publisher sold it? You know,
Yeah, exactly.
How much versus you sell the ebook, sell yours?
If I sold, exactly. You sell a paperback. Back in the day when I sold, I think my last book came out in hardcover, it was like $11.99 kids book.
Yeah.
And I think I got $1 something.
There you go.
10%, $1.19.
Right.
And you know, it's just a no. I mean, for authors, but the issue for me, and I think it's for a lot of people, is how do you pick somebody? How do you find an author out of this vast universe of authors that are just, because there's nobody out there saying, you know what, you can't write worth a crap. Why are you putting this out here and making us suffer through your junk? Because I'm telling you, I tried to do this where I was going to do a website where I would, I wanted to get authors together, but first I was going to do it so long it took to try to put this together. I was going to find books that were, kind of what I call publishing industry standard, which I don't know what that means even. It's just my idea. Proper punctuation, no,
Real chapters.
5 million hours of exposition, no. Just believable characters, dialogue, the whole thing. Something where you're reading the book and you're not going, who the hell wrote this? Why am I reading this? Well, I tried to do it because I thought, this might make, I could sell subscriptions. People come on, they would know they're getting a book. It's like a de facto publisher. Well, I spent 15 minutes finding one book by reading and I had just read that was just a sampling of the books. I'm reading them and I'm like, and I'm downloading, sampling. I find one book in 15 minutes. Now, who's to say that book's going to carry through all the way through the book? So now I'm thinking, well, I have to read the whole thing probably to be fair to the reader. And I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing? I can't make money doing this. This is insane. And it's just extremely hard. And people, read the customer reviews.
But those could be skewed too.
Oh, they're all skewed. Are you kidding me?
Especially if you have 15 of your closest friends say, hey, write a review on my book.
I can't even get my friends to do it.
Now there's websites where you can pay $5 a person and they will write.
Yeah, they have reviews. Yeah, they do, absolutely. I've seen that.
Publishers.
You got the,
publishers
Something
lost.
like $200.
Publishers actually lost the right to talk to us about dialogue and characterization and all that when they stopped doing copy editing. When the publishers decided, we'll just publish it the way it's turned in, and they stopped copy editing.
Yeah.
That was it. Then we knew, to hell with it. When New York publishers actually stopped copy editing a while back. It's amazing the books that come out now with no copy editing.
My first book came out, and I never had even written a book in my life. I never even thought about it. I wrote this thing for fun.
Brad, the only reason I question that is there's a
Excuse me. Can I finish what I was just saying?
I thought you were finished.
I was just saying. That,
No, he actually was breathing.
Yeah, but I was just saying that it was amazing to me because I have people who actually have excerpts from my book saying this is terrible writing.
Yeah.
And it is.
But
and it is because
it was never copy edited, was it?
No, it wasn't at all. I mean, it was like stuff like he walked into the room and smelled cinnamon and apples or whatever, and then he looked over and saw the potpourri of cinnamon apples on it. I'm like, wow. I didn't know anything. I'm like, couldn't you cross one of those things out?
A professional copy. You didn't need a great editor.
Exactly.
Just a copy editor would have saved you.
It would have. It absolutely, because that's the thing that that's the things in the book that a copy editor would have fixed. Exactly right.
Amen.
And I didn't know, now here's the thing. That brings us to the point of, who's gonna edit your book? You are, unless you wanna pay somebody. But you are gonna be editing, so you have got to learn how to take out the stuff that doesn't need to be in there.
Oh, little trick about editing.
Absolutely.
Little trick about editing. If you're editing your own books, do not edit them off of your computer screen. I read a very interesting study that said when you're trying to read off of a computer screen, you only retain 80% of the, you lose 20% of the information. I know it myself. I'll look at something I've done on the computer screen and I'll say, wow, that looks great. And then I'll print it out and I'll say, huh? What? There's a mistake here.
And you won't even get it, you won't catch them, it's right.
You can only really edit on paper.
It has something to do with the frequency of the screen and the way you're.
Because you're projecting onto the screen what you expect to see there.
Right.
When it's on paper, for some reason, you don't fool yourself as
Yeah.
well as you fool yourself when it's on a screen.
Yeah,
I
I wonder
it's
if they did that
phraseological.
study, it'd be an
It's crazy.
interesting study to see how it would work on a reader, because that's
Yeah.
kind of different than a screen almost. It's not the same look as, like the particularly the Kindles,
Right.
black and white, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I like, cause I've been, doing some, just reading, not really editing, but reading over what I edited on the iPad. And it seems to be almost like reading it on paper, but maybe I'm fooling, maybe I'll catch more mistakes.
But everything everything Vince says about copy editing is so important. Forget editing for a minute. Copy editing, man, is like the plumbing, the engineering of this stuff. I remember back in the 70s, one of the first superhero novels was Avengers Battle the Earthwrecker by, I think, Ando Binder, the brother writing team. And of course, now we're about to have all these wonderful movies from Marvel. We're about to have one of the greatest movies ever made, the Avengers movie. But this was not a very good novel, Avengers Battle the Earthwrecker. And the reason it was bad is it never was copy edited. And this is when I first realized what copy editing was. I wasn't a writer yet, I was still learning. So there's a great sentence. Captain America walked out on the stage. The spotlight fell on him. I thought, God, he's a tough bastard.
Yeah.
In the next sentence, he's not even phased, man.
Yeah.
Those things are heavy.
He
That's
rubs his eyes on the
that is as good an illustration as any why copy editors, man, earn their money. And when publishers go, oh, we have to save some money, let's get rid of the copy editors.
Well, Brett, the reason I wanted to ask about that is that I think we both know the same person who's still working in copy editing. Is it certain houses that got rid of their copy editors because Vienna Hope is, copy editing like mad. And some books that actually win Hugos now.
Yeah, by the way, your chance to win a Hugo or Nebula will go up if you have a copy editor. Yeah, of course, but I'm talking about the publishers that don't. I see books that come out now, I won't name a publisher, I won't name an author,
Right.
but, please, there's some really awful
Well,
stuff.
no, there was-
That stuff that copy editors would help you with that. It's insidiously easy to make those kind of mistakes.
Yeah.
The first book that I ever wrote, in the first draft of it, when I was going back and revising, I have a scene where a character is enlarging from normal size to giant size, and I wrote the sentence, "He grew a foot."
Was that after the spotlight fell?
Yeah. A fellow can take this more than one way.
Yeah,
I think I need to fix that.
Amen, brother.
Well, no, actually,
Writing is hard.
Yeah.
No, you made me think about that because I was just.
Right.
Well, no.
Especially if you're going to sell that book in Canada where they're using a metric system.
But I think that kind of brings us back to the point where, writing is very much a solitary sport. It's you and either the computer or the typewriter or whatever. And then e-publishing is even more so a solitary sport. You are now the publisher, the editor, the writer, and the public relations and advance person.
And if you're the only reader, it's even lonelier.
But if you're a good marketer, you include your fans in it. Let
Right.
them help you
Well,
write.
that's it.
No.
And,
Not for me.
That's a very interesting thing that you mentioned there, especially with doing ebooks. I mean, it's potentially something that you can play around with. Let's say you were writing a book and writing a story, and you actually had 3 alternative endings for it. Well, with an e-reader, with an ebook, you could put in all 3 alternative endings and let your reader choose which one they liked or which one they wanted
Sure.
Finish.
To that point as well, I've actually, with my friends, hey, on page 32, you had this. You go back on the e-reader, you change it, fix it.
Right.
And you just put it back up.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, you're the writer, you're the editor. One thing that I found out that I really liked is I realized, hey, I'm the art director, because I'm
Yeah.
hiring the cover artist. And I found that I really enjoyed that process of working with the artist, and also, greatly diminished my respect for, professional art directors. Because it's like, so, all I have to do is say you like it and you don't. A chimp could do this. Why am
They're
I?
hiring the wrong chimp.
That's right. It's like, why am I?
I had a lot of fun with that when I.
Yeah.
Dolphin editing next.
It's all about, I mean, the cover art is so important, and yet you go on there and you see cover after, if you look at these ebooks, you see cover after cover that just, you're like, how you're saving a nickel? I mean, you're better off just having the black album, it's
Yeah.
a white album, it's a white book.
Vince, I used to have a roommate who was an artist, and he actually did a self-published writer's cover art. And he wanted to read the book first or do something different, but the writer says, no, I want you to do this, and he told him what he wanted it to look like, and he wanted to get paid, so he just did whatever the guy told him to do. So.
Well, there's a lot. There are a bunch of sites where you can go get public domain artwork, and you get it, and you use a computer program to slap your name and your title on it, and there's your book cover. I swear to God, I may be mistaken, but I believe I can always spot those, and they always look like garbage.
And a lot of e-publishing sites will create a cover for you. It's not going to be incredibly fantastic artwork. It's going to probably be geometric patterns and colors with some, writing on it. But, they'll generate it for you if that's what you need.
The big thing that the e-book and the whole internet has done really is to put the onus of marketing on you. I mean, it was on you anyway, right? I mean,
Oh, sure.
back in the,
Well, if you're
back
doing
in the
book
dark
tours,
ages, you still had to go on website and do all that stuff.
Well, even people now with fairly big publishing houses, they're requiring those people to take the major share of the marketing. One of the things I did want to mention, and maybe it's inconsequential or maybe it's not, but what about people taking, I don't know, going into Amazon or going into Barnes and Noble, Nook or whatever, and being able to sidestep the program in which they actually pay for stuff and just download it in. I mean, a good hacker could crack into pretty much anything.
probably. But, and that can happen with anything that you're going to put on the net, music, art, anything.
On the other hand, the shoplifter can walk out of the store with your book.
Your book.
This is true.
I was gonna say, there's a website that you can go on right now that I know of, that you can put whatever you want, from ebooks to videos to music, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, all of it, they got tons of those.
And what do you think the percentage, in retail they call it shrinkage, but what do you think the percentage of people? What do you think, there's a percentage of people that are actually, going to want to go through that step to take your stuff without paying for it, maybe 2%, 3%, 5%?
What percentage do I think?
I don't think there'll be very many, because they're only 99 cents. That's the thing. You're at such a low price, it's like, 99 cents. What are you gonna rip off for 99 cents?
That's true.
Well, people steal bubble gum. I mean,
I know, but bubblegum is an impulsive theft.
From talking online to my friends, I'm an online chatter, talking online with my friends, I know for a fact what people normally do is they'll put up a list of, this is everything I want, and they go get it all at once. And so they might take 50 to 100 things in an evening just sitting there downloading it. And I don't know, what they're taking, but.
Well,
Come up with a
internet-
program that'll blow
yeah.
their computers up.
Yeah. People still want stuff free, mainly. I order stuff on Amazon. I sometimes, do the auctions, eBay.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I'm the same as everybody else. What you're really doing most of the time is looking for free stuff on the internet, most of the time, rather than whipping out that old credit card. That's what I think.
You mentioned that Corey Doctorow, did he do that? Did he give those books out as ebooks, or were they prior to the?
I'm still
Kindle
trying to
type
figure out, I'm a little confused.
Because if it was
I got-
Kindle books, it's different.
Yeah, he'll tell you. He's got
What I
a
think,
block on it.
Corey, I've read some of Corey's books, and get a little bit of his career. I think Corey, what he did was he would be working on a book and he would just dump out a chapter on his website.
Sometimes more than a chapter though.
Well, he would print out the whole book.
Large enough chunks that goes beyond advertising to something that's getting closer to giveaway, especially if they're self-contained, like, you know, chapters made out of individual short
But if
stories.
he's doing it not in the Kindle format where you got it on the reader, I'm wondering if, you know, people just were reading on the screen and they're like, you know, or, I just have a question. Oh, okay.
No, but I think I just think, and I still think he does this, he would just put out chapter by chapter stuff on it. I mean, the only other writer who I think kind of did this.
Stephen King tried to give away, we'll do a whole book once.
Yeah. But no, I think John Scalzi, Old Man's War, he initially put out on the web, and he would just have the electronic hat out for donations, and he would do a chapter, but you know, said, hey guys, I'm working on this thing. If you want to keep it interesting for me, and if you like it, then put some money and I'll work on it. And then, but no, it worked. Not only did it work, he got money enough for it. He probably got a call from Patrick Nielsen Haven says, hey, this is good.
That's the thing about
You know?
Tor issuing stuff that people already got for free. It sounds like I'm crazy when I say that, but I'm only half crazy.
But the thing is, and established John Scalzi is now one of the hottest new writers of the, you know, I think he's one of the best Gen X science fiction writers out there.
Yeah.
And he's got a following.
Yeah.
Before we get to your
It's really
question,
weird.
before we get to your question and your question, I just want to make one point, and that is, a lot of EPUB sites will suggest in their marketing that if you have a short story, if you have a couple of novels and a short story, put the short story on the site for free.
Right.
Get people reading your stuff who then want to come back and read the rest. Even if they are stealing it, let's call it what it is, not downloading it, stealing. Even if they're stealing stuff for free.
Sampling it.
Well, see, most of these sites will let you sample, will let you take review, parts of it, not all of it.
That's true.
But if people are totally downloading entire pieces, they're still reading it.
Yeah.
If they like it, they're gonna tell somebody. And those other people may not download it for free or get a copy of it, they may buy it. Which goes back to
plumber comes in and just uses my stuff. Hey, let me fix your thing, for you, then I'll come back when you have a baby.
In reference to the subject of giving things away, I'm sitting here at this very moment with CDs that have two of my pieces of short fiction on them, and I will give one to you if you are interested at the end of this panel.
And your question, sir, you've been very
My
good.
question is, if we're really just talking about, what it comes down to is, are we wanting to grow up to be dinosaurs? In other words.
Is it before or after the asteroid?
Yeah, I think the
asteroid is dead.
Okay, I need to know that.
Because, you know, maybe what it is data is just becoming more democratic. People don't want to pay for it.
Source.
So if you want to be a writer, don't expect to make money.
Or don't expect to make money the old-fashioned way. We're moving into a new world, so.
But I don't think it's shaken out yet what the new fashion is.
Right, but whenever something's new, when you're in revolutionary times, it's not that there's no way to make money from writing in this new world, but it's not going to be, you can't do it the way you used to.
Well, what is the differentiation? Because I think that's what your point is. Is we have such a glut of information available to us at any moment's notice that how do you differentiate? And I don't think we know that yet.
We don't. And if you think about it, man, back in the day, you know, when there was a limited number of magazines, no TV, mostly people got their information from. You had people, when you read something, it was by somebody who could damn well write. You knew you were going to read something good, so you would pay the money. Now you can't make that determination without reading something first. And you're like,
Or you have to do more work yourself.
Yeah,
To be fair,
exactly.
you can still, you have to do more to be your own filter.
Well, I mean,
In the good old days, you didn't have to do as much.
Right.
Now, you have to do more to be your own filter. How's that? Does that answer it? And that gets to your glut of
Because there was a premium.
yeah.
Well, I
There's
just,
no premium anymore.
Right.
Well, to go back to what you were saying about copy editing, also comes down to what the expectation of your audience is.
Right, what if the artist doesn't care?
The audience doesn't care.
Right.
That's very frighteningly true.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read some books by, I was trying to figure this whole thing out, so I'm reading the successful guides. And I'll be damned if I can figure it out, because their writing is lousy.
It's fun to watch.
I mean, it is literally crap.
Well,
I mean, it's like, it is like, but people are buying it and buying more of them. And I'm like, who is doing it? Is it because you wanna tell your friend you read this guy's book, hey, you know what? It's fashion.
Well, Vince, when you say the successful guys, I mean, are they, what
I'm
level
talking
do you
about
think?
a million seller on it in Kindle.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about, people who are in the top 10 in Kindle.
Let's take a pretty good writer who's either getting sloppy or not getting copy edited, but we know he's a good writer, so I'll use him because then I'm not attacking other writers I could attack who I think are lousy writers. So I'm gonna use a writer who's actually good, but illustrates the problem. George R.R. Martin has either gotten sloppy or the copy editing's not happening, because we know George R.R. Martin is a very good writer. So I'm reading one of these Thrones books, which has all the tie-ins with the games and stuff. And here's a sentence that any writer could do as a first draft. But if you're gonna go back and edit your own work, you'll fix it, or a copy editor will fix it. So you don't even have to have the editor. Here's a sentence. He dug his fingers into her arm painfully. Let me tell you what's wrong with that sentence. The sentence should be, he dug his fingers into her arm, period. Now if you want to go on, you say, the pain was like blah, 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 or she'd never known such pain, blah, blah, blah. But you see, the trouble with the sentence, he dug his fingers into her arm painfully, is the implication there's a way to dig your fingers into her arm that isn't painful? Because why are you telling us it's painful when it has to be painful if he dug his fingers into her arm, unless she's got a very weird fucking arm? So there's the example right there of that should not be.
She was beta Plato.
So just one more sentence that I shall breathe. That should never have gotten through a top commercial series, a writer who's competent. So I'm not attacking Martin, don't get this in it. I'm not attacking him.
See, but most people just don't, I mean, most people just, that just doesn't register, honestly. I mean, it really doesn't register
Getting
with
back-
most
getting-
people, and that's the thing. But when you actually do, I mean, when you actually read something that's been copy edited, it flows like just
Yeah.
beautiful, man. It's
Yeah.
just a pleasing experience. And when you read something that's like, you know, you're reading and you're going along nicely, and then they just put in this paragraph of exposition about what they just said, and you're like,
Well, I think there's actually
Right,
a bigger,
right.
there's a bigger problem than that, and it starts in like public education and right up into college. And you got people going into college and into writing classes who not only can't, I was talking to someone who said to me, he said, oh yeah, it was Joe Haldeman that said, because he teaches a science fiction writing course up at MIT,
I know
and
that.
he says, I actually had a student in my class who said he had never read a novel, ever. So, I mean, if people are not exposed to good writing, even mediocre writing, even don't know how to construct something in a decent way, I mean, you'll read something and say, oh yeah, that's all right, because they've never seen, you know, it's like, you know, being colorblind and never knowing what, you know, the full spectrum of color looks like.
Remember, mediocre writing is a lot better than bad writing.
Well, that's true.
Tell me what Kim Kardashian does other than it's on television.
yeah. Same
That's
thing.
what we're competing in.
Yeah, that's,
Exactly.
yeah, or the Jersey Shore.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm wondering what,
Oh, I was gonna say, I'm just glad you mentioned it about copy editors, because the books I've read more recently, they're just the typos in them. I've been looking at, whoops, this
Oh,
is
yeah.
misspelled, that's misspelled, and it's like, it used to not be like that several years
No.
ago.
Yeah.
Well, there's another reason for that too, and you know, if you go back to the I don't know, maybe pre-1985, back forward, you know, from that, I mean, when people sat down and wrote books, they wrote them on typewriters, or then they
Which slowed you down. No matter how fast you were, it's still slower than a touch typist on a touch pad.
Oh, absolutely. So now, you know, you're working away on something, you're working on a story, or you just, you know, gee, you know, I think I'd like that paragraph up here. So you just, you know, take it, delete it here, put it up here, change some words. I mean, you could do
Like
things
that, too fast.
Like that. And somebody had said, I can't remember who it was, I read an article, that said, because of Microsoft Word, everybody thinks they're an author.
But, you know, and coming back to you, that's really okay with me, because in art.
Well, what was your point again? What was
His part is that now, instead of the publishers being the filter.
Oh, right, being your own filter, that was my
We're,
point.
you know, the filters are being removed between the artist,
Right.
no matter what kind of artist you are, and the person who wants the art. Whether you're a reader, whether you're an art connoisseur, or whatever. And the pieces that are really good or popular are gonna make it, and the things that nobody wants to look at.
See, I don't
just gonna
believe,
go
I don't
away.
believe that's true though. I don't believe the things that are really good are necessarily gonna make it through.
Oh,
A
I
lot of
believe it.
authors, a lot
I
of
said
authors
what?
are writing really good stuff, but they're not, you know, they don't wanna be social people. I mean, I like talking to people and stuff, but I can tell you, I did Twitter for like 2-3 weeks and I was done with that shit. That was the
Well,
most
and here's-
awful thing.
Here's a
well,
big
waste.
spotlight.
I mean,
Last summer, 3 major university English departments said, we will now accept texting abbreviations as part of our students' turning.
Oh, it's the end of civilization, it's over. The end times Christians are right, you know, it's all over.
Yeah.
Heavens will unfurl.
Please, you've been very patient. Did you ask your question too?
I wanted to ask you, you talk about giving writing away for free. I wanted to know if any of you post any of your work on that website, Scribed.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, I tried it,
idea.
but I don't keep up with it, cause I'm like you. I mean, that shit just drives me crazy, but I've gotta get over that. But
Yeah,
anyway.
you do, so do I.
Yeah.
Dude, it's just.
It's the way the world is. But you can build up readers. I know I posted a
That's right.
chapter of a novel and it was something like 10,000 readers all over the world. It was interesting and I wondered if any of you had tried that.
It is,
You had 10,000
I haven't done that, but I've actually been, in the past, if I got ripped off, I'd freak out. And then some years ago, I suddenly decided when I get ripped off, it's free advertising. I had a complete shift of attitude. So some foreign translations that I never got royalties on, I suddenly realized, you know, I have an audience in other languages I didn't know I had before. I had a complete shift of attitude because of what this gentleman's talking about. That the world is changing radically. And right now, I think not being ignored, having any audience whatsoever, is more important than that rinky-dink royalties check. So in a choice between the little check and getting more people to see something, I'm now voting for number 2, not number 1. And I'm in the Science Fiction Writers of America. I assure you most of them do not think the way I do. I used to be a member of Horror Writers Association, same thing. Believe me, all these writers' unions or groups, especially the hideous Writers Guild, they don't care about anything but the money. They have a union mentality. Well, believe me, if the writer only cares about money, he's making a huge mistake. You better start putting audience ahead of money right now at this time.
You know, it really comes down, how many writers in the United States actually make a living from writing?
It's
Very
less,
few.
it's less than 1,000.
And it's getting fewer. But, you know.
The mid-list was wiped out because 15, 20 years ago was a much higher number than now. I'm a mid-list writer, and I was making, I actually made enough to live on when I was doing the Doom novels for pocketbooks from id Software's game, you know, with my co-writer Doppa the Pew, whose name is worse than my name, Brad Linaweaver. As you say Doppa the Pew, you know, at least my name sounds like a name. Well, we made a significant amount of money in the 90s on this. Then the books are reissued in 2005 because of that movie with The Rock. And I did a 1-sentence movie review of that film. I said, I hope the Doom movie doesn't hurt The Rock's acting career. That got on radio. But the point I'm trying to make is, I learned all about promotion when it's real. And by being part of this gravy train, I was shocked to discover bookstores were secondary. They were pushing these books in other places than bookstores. You go to these gaming stores, you go to record shops, all kinds of things, general mall openings, and these Doom novels were in dumps in all kinds of places which were not bookstores. And I thought to myself, now I understand why these are doing well in the bookstores, because they're getting promoted outside of the bookstores. I got to see my name in USA Today because of this promo. And it wasn't because Doppa and I are such wonderful writers, we made it on the bestseller list. It was a franchise, and we were riding the train. So we got to be part of this train. But what I learned, and if I can only apply it to today's world, the ebooks, the internet, promoting books in places you wouldn't think to promote books. There needs to be another, we gotta figure out a way to promote our writing in unexpected places now, and that's something I learned years ago from this.
I wrote a essay for a poker site.
Ah, good man. You hear that?
I did a little article for which superhero
Yeah, tell
play
me,
the best poker.
did you hear what he just said? That's super important.
Yeah, I wrote
listen to that.
I wrote a little article for a poker website about which superhero would play the best poker. You know, it's just like any place I can get out there.
That's how you do it, man. That's how you do
Superman,
it.
has he got X-ray vision?
Well, I'd have to go
He
through
gets
the whole
excited
thing,
and
but
burns
that
the
was not
card.
my choice.
You know, he's doing X-ray, then he goes to the heat vision, and they say, "Oh, Superman, you're cheating, man." But seriously, this is the best advice we can give you. Like this gentleman said, we're in a totally different world now, so it's how do you get attention? Figure out a way to promote your writing in unexpected venues. And anyone in this audience can come up with an idea just as good as we can. We're in uncharted waters.
Yeah, because what I found on Twitter, why I quit doing it was because everybody that I was tweeting, or everybody that was following me, was also a writer. You know? Let's follow each other around in a senseless circle. Whee!
You do see that
The
stuff.
circular firing
Yeah,
squad.
it was, man. It was just everybody's like, hey, I wrote a book. I have a book. I have one too. We bought each other's books. Nobody made any money.
Everyone broke even.
Hey!
Actually, Brad, it's
We kept buying until we got the bestseller list.
Hey, Brad, it's actually interesting you meant, because I saw Tom Doherty when he was guesting on our World.
Yeah.
He pointed out that he tried to make sure that tour books would be in airports, you know, in the airport bookstores.
Yeah.
That be, because what you were saying.
Airport kiosks, man.
Airport
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
sells great.
I actually got to write the Sliders novel
Now you
based on
can
that
find
TV
kiosks
show. Does anybody
online.
remember Sliders with Jerry O'Connell?
Oh, yeah.
I'm the guy who wrote all the books. I'm friends with Tracy Torme, son of Mel Torme, who created the show with Robert Weiss. And it was a big thrill. I saw my Sliders novel at an airport kiosk. Now, it was not because of my virtues as a writer. People wanted to buy a book based on that show. I did a lot of media tie-in work when I was in Hollywood, and I suddenly realized this is a way to reach audience, because if you're a good enough writer to get these assignments, because I was trying to get like the TV scripts, instead I got the books. See, if I had just tried to get the books, I would have failed. It's because I tried to get script assignments and failed that I got the books. You see? And it worked just as well for me, in an odd way. So, you know, that's something else I learned. You know, many writers, if they don't get the exact thing they're going after, they give up. It is amazing how many alternatives where you can write. Like, I'd end up interviewing celebrities on a movie where I didn't get to write the script. Then I would write articles, sell the articles in national magazines, and get a publicity job on the next film. Notice I'm not writing scripts, but I'm still writing. Then eventually I saw some of my stories adapted to film. Then I didn't have to worry about joining the guild because I have an original story credit. Somebody else is writing a script.